So welcome to round three. So
Welcome.
this is Inigo and Jörg, and we are talking about the replays of the Sunday's Legacy Challenge. At this moment, I'm 2-0 and playing against Nerdkneereape, and he played Stompy in the latest weeks.
Hmm.
So I assumed he is still playing the same deck.
Very good matchup for the main deck Progenitus.
One reason to play the Progenitus, but the endurances are also okay, I would say. So here the opponent is on the play, and we are on the draw. I'm not really sure that is a good way to start, a very good way to start against the deck on the draw. We are very soft to the Trinisphere and we are very soft to Blood Moon, but here we just have to take our chances, I would say. So I think this is not a very good hand, but it still has a way to
I
play.
think I think it's an
We have the Once
okay
Upon a
6.
Time. Yeah, we have the Once Upon a Time, and we can find also Shepherd, for example, and then we are able to play good magic here. The opponent mulligans to 6 and starts with a Chalice on 0. So here I decided to play the Once Upon a Time first to increase the chance of finding forest, because I
Hmm.
already have the fetch land, and here if I fetch first, then I reduce the chance to get access to the second forest. And with the second forest, it's very important because of the opponent's Blood Moon. And then you, especially because I drew the Natural Order, I want to have access to 2 green mana. Sometimes you are able to set up that with the Irish Reclaimer, but because we are under a chalice here, um, doesn't really work that well to set that up. So makes sense. And had the luck to find the forest.
The forest, yeah.
Yeah. And here I played the Bazooka Bog in the first turn, so I didn't really had a 1 mana play anyway. And I decided to risk it. If he has a Blood Moon, then the fetch land is disabled. But with this play, I can just ignore the tempo negative of Bazooka Bog entering the battlefield tapped.
Yeah, because you don't have any other turn one play, so it's yeah, it's okay. Oh, that is pretty scary also.
Yeah, the opponent exiled Fury from his hand and played the Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Exiling this card from the hand is first sign at first place, but if you think about it, that probably means that he has a second one.
Exactly right. I don't think what other deck can start you are Aaron Relentless playing Pojuka Bog Go. What other deck could you be playing except elves?
Yeah, and also he saw the Once Upon a Time in the forest, so he already knew that I'm playing else and nothing else than that. So exiling this card here means that he has access to a second one.
But we have to make the same play, I guess.
Yeah, we just take the forest and search for the shepherd. Then
Yeah.
he uses the search ability, discarding 2 unneeded mana sources.
Yeah, the looting ability, yeah, very good in this deck.
And then he had Shatter Skull Smashing, handling the shepherd.
Yeah, unfortunate.
And here it's very good to have access to Progenitus,
Yeah,
because
I'm just
I don't
checking that
think
out. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think there's a realistic way to win the game without Progenitus. And here
No.
Yeah, and here I have 2 options: either play Dryad Arbor or the Fetchland. But playing the Arbor was too risky for me because
Yeah,
I expected that the opponent could have still had the second Fury, and he just realizing that it's good for him to get me off the 4 mana. But as I had the fourth land anyway, if I didn't had the fourth mana source, and I just would have been forced to play the Dryad Arbor first and hope that it survives or that he waits to destroy it. But here I just play the fetchland. The opponent attacks, gets a treasure token, and then casts the Blood Moon. So I respond to the Blood Moon
By fetching, of
by
course.
fetching, yeah. And the opponent didn't feel that it's necessary to destroy it. Maybe he wasn't able to destroy it, but maybe could be that he was waiting because he didn't expect what is coming now. And then I search for Progenitus.
Yeah, so good, very good showcase of why Progenitus is very, very good and
Exactly.
in the main deck. Yeah.
Here we were under a chalice, and
As you mentioned, I don't think there's a way to win this game if you don't have Progenitus in the main deck.
yeah. So yeah, worked very well to just have enough time, and then I could use my fetchland to get the second forest. He wasn't able to play the Blood Moon that early. Maybe because he saw that I already have the forest. Maybe he found the Blood Moon of the um, Fable of the Mirror Breaker later, but we don't really know. But what we know is that having Progenitus in the deck is very good
Yes, yes.
against these decks, which are able to wipe your whole board, and then you can play a low resource game and kill him with 2 attacks. So game 2, I was on the draw. Was very close. So here we have a very solid hand. We have the Once Upon a Time. We have enough lands to
Hardcast Endurance.
play around Trinisphere as well. So that's the usual start they have against elves. They just want to play turn 1 sphere. And here we can react with a Once Upon a Time.
Once Upon a Time, yeah.
Finding more lands. And
even an answer in 2 mana.
Yeah, that was a bit too fast, but there was also a Cradle. But I decided to take the Boseiju, which is
I totally agree. Totally agree.
helpful, either to just answer this or to just have an untapped mana source for the endurance.
Yep.
So and here I'm not really forced to fetch for the Dryad Arbor. It's too risky. They just have access to Fury, and then I don't have a way to play Magic at all. Then they loot 2 bad cards away. Yeah, and then they found another Trinisphere. So it wasn't really, didn't really make sense to destroy one sphere or the Fable with the Boseiju. So I kept it to have the safe mana for the Endurance next turn. And
yeah, maybe at some point you need to deal with some other artifact or a Blood Moon. So yeah.
Yes, Blood Moon is a good factor, exactly. And I still can use it for the reflection of Kiki Jiki.
Yeah, it keeps the enchanted type, so yes. Enchantment type.
Yes, if they put a Fury on the stack or something like that.
This is a very good play.
And here did exactly this play, so I wanted to destroy it, so they can't really duplicate the Rebel Master.
Double Master, yeah.
But they
can you pause for a second? I want to comment something. A misplay I did recently, and I think it's very okay, so it doesn't come up in this exact situation, but I think it's easily fixable on the normal matchups. Is you have to deploy your endurance very fast, so you are able to block the Rebel Master before it has more than 3 power, so you can block it without losing your endurance. Because during one game last week, I remember I had a choice to play one endurance, but I decided to do something else in the early turn, and then there were enough tokens so that the Rebel Master would have 4 or more power, So my block it would be jump blocking, not blocking. So that is very bad. We want to keep all our creatures here. So I always want to point that out. That is very important to try and keep the. Of course, for example, in this situation, you're gonna be forced to jump block, but and to trade with the Rubble Master. But if you can always keep your endurance alive, do it. So
Makes sense, yeah. And that's also very interesting if you have, for example, Elvish Reclaimer in play, and then you have to see the point where you just attack, or sometimes it's better to keep it back, because with the Reclaimer back, then if they play the Rebel Master, you can still block the Goblin token, and then Rebel Master is much weaker in the next turns. But if you
exactly. So
and
you can
let
basically
and let one token alive, then it gets to a 4 power 1, and then you can't even block it with the Reclaimer anymore. Then you have to trade with the Reclaimer. So sometimes it can matter to decide if you want to attack. But one reason to keep the Reclaimer back is always to use it and use the mana to rotate lands away to get it to a 3/4 as soon as possible. But once it's a 3/4, then it totally makes sense to also attack with it,
yeah,
because it's also a very fast clock, and with the Ancient Tombs, the damage adds up very fast. So here in this situation, I also have Natural Order live as a top deck. Um, yeah, if I top deck the Natural Order, I can still win this game. But here they have the double goblins, so the Rebel Master was
must block.
a must block because 5 damage was a bit too much here.
Hmm.
And then I was too far behind. Then I fetched.
Oh wow,
Then also they had the Blood Moon.
yeah.
And yeah, here I was too far away, I would say. So I played the
You can play
Reclaimer
one Reclaimer.
and the second Arbor. And here I was still alive. But
For the
then,
top deck.
yeah, for top deck. But then only the Force of Vigor. So here my plan was
Hmm.
to either I could play the Reclaimer, but then I couldn't have played the Force of Vigor. But here my plan was to block with the Triad Arbor and rotate it
Rotate.
away, and then end of turn I could have destroyed the Blood Moon, and I wanted to search for a Cradle, so that could have been an option to get
Oh
back into the
really?
game.
Hmm. So yeah, actually yes, Cradle unlocking Cradle gives you more, allows you to cast more creatures. Yes, yes, you're right.
Um, yeah, because then I can
I was thinking about blowing the two trainees, but yeah.
yeah, Trinis was also an option, but I only had 2 mana at this point anyway, and I wanted to um, don't go to 4 here at this point. Somehow I didn't want to go. No, sorry, to 3. If I go to 3, I didn't want to go too much low on life, and then I decided to block uh, one of the 2/2s and just take 3 to go to 5. But yeah, not really sure which line had mattered. But I think if I search for a cradle, then the natural order is still
Still alive. Yeah.
exactly. And with destroying the 2 Trinispheres, yeah, natural order would have been lethal in this case as well.
Yeah,
But
because once you have the double green, probably you can cast anything.
yeah,
So
not really sure which line would have been better. But here they have the gun, so the bounce spell for the Reclaimer. Not really sure why they played after blocks. Probably they wanted to keep their Legion Warboss alive, but
yeah, makes sense.
I
Yeah.
waited to play it after the blocks, so like this, I would have taken 2 additional damage. That play doesn't really make sense to me, but then I was set too far behind, especially with my block. It makes more sense now for him, because here I don't have the creature on board anymore, and with the Trinisphere in play, it was just one lock piece too much, I would say, double Trinisphere and Blood Moon. So probably I would have been able to beat one of those, but here I was already dead on board because of the
Yeah,
Blood
so
Moon.
just let me count. You faced uh, one Blood Moon, two Trini Spheres, one Rebel Master, one Kiki Saga, and one Wabos. That's too many threats. Unlock pieces.
Exactly. Yeah, it wasn't really good start for him, but then they, after the Fable of the Mirror Breaker, they had um, too much diverse lock pieces, so I was forced to use my Boseiju on it. So if I released the one Trinisphere earlier, I would have had a very good turn where I can progress the board, and I needed to wipe or try to wipe with Fury, but here they were too aggressive, and especially with all of those tokens, they were able to push the damage through. So here didn't really matter that they were 3-4, but I could have been stabilized in 2 turns, I would say, if I had 2 turns more.
Yeah, I think it's a matchup that is very heavily decided by the play draw. So
Yeah, and I would say that the game started with a turn 1 Trinisphere and it was still close, and I had still
still in the game. Yes, yes,
yeah,
true, true.
and I had still good top decks to win with the natural order. So it was unfortunate to not find the win here, but after that was turn 1 Trinisphere, or it was still a good Magic game, I would say. But then they had too much lock pieces. And here I decided to keep the Christ in the deck because sometimes I want to have access to removal, and sometimes I'm able to Green Sun Zenith for 3. And yeah, that was a reason why I kept the card in, not because of any Planeswalkers, but having access to one removal isn't that bad, I would say, especially on the play. So here I kept the one lander and the opponent mulliganed to 6. And for sure here we start by ramping.
Ramping, yeah, easy.
And
Newton often says when you don't know what to do, just go for the maximum mana play, the play that allows you
yeah,
to expand your mana the most, to develop your mana the most. Yeah.
exact. And here they have the best opening hand they could have had, and turn 1 Trinisphere. And here in this situation I only had 2 lands and luckily drew the third land. Then here I decided to do nothing first. Um, were 2 good plays, so either one was Christ or Endurance. But with the Endurance, I play the best around Fury first, and also if they play Rebel Master, I can just take the token for free. And then if the Endurance is already on the battlefield, I have a very good protection for the upcoming Grist. So if they
3 mana
Blood Moon,
spell,
I can just take the
the second
Forest
forest.
and
Yeah.
wait a bit and take the Christ out of the Birchlow Ranger. But as they don't
Yeah.
have a threat at this stage, I don't have to really cast the Christ anyway. But here they play Chalice on 1 only, so not
Yeah, but
much
I think
damage.
how they tap their mana, oh, they probably were having trouble to pay for the chalice on one past the Trini. That's why they tapped and untapped the mana so many times. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah, you're right. So usually, no, but they have to pay 3 mana to cast it for 1.
Yeah,
They
but they
cannot
did
do.
something weird, right? So at first I think they maybe had a 3 drop. I don't know. What's weird?
Okay. Not really sure, but not really. Maybe they could have had a Rebel Master as well, but they smelt the endurance here. Because if I don't have any plays, I still can. It's unlikely that I don't have any plays at all, and if I don't have plays, I can just attack with a Dried Arbor. So they smelt the endurance, and then they decided to not cast the Rebel Master into it. And here it's good, so there isn't a Blood Moon, so I can just take the Black Source for Grist. And now I have a very good situation because the opponent doesn't have any creatures. He only has some lock pieces, which aren't relevant to me because I also have access to the Shepherds. And here I decided to not play the Dryad Arbor out of the hand because I didn't want to give the opponent a good way to play Fury. So if
Yeah,
you
decrease the value for the Fury. Do you want to take
exactly
my Endurance or the token and the Dryad? You have to
no
choose.
exactly they can do like a 2-1-1, or they can just take the two tokens. But if they take the two Dried Arbor and the token, they still have a good way, I would say. And also was very good if they hardcast Fury. Mm, they could destroy the token and take two to the grist, and then I have more creatures back up. So here playing about a bit around mass removal seemed to make sense to me.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
they only had Blood Moon, so no creature, but only a couple of log pieces. But that's a big difference if you're on the draw or on the play. And then I just used the Grist again and cast the Birchal Rangers for the Morph ability and attacked for 5. And then they were at 6 life already. Also because of the Ancient Tomb, because they took 6 damage of their own Ancient Tomb here. And then also the attacks. So having access to the Endurance is a very fast clock, is very good against the Moonstompy players, I would say.
Yeah, 3 for tribal.
3 for Tribal, and especially paired with a couple of Ancient Tombs
Ancient Dooms to
activations,
help us. Yes, yes, yes.
that helped really much. And here it's also good to have access to the 2-2. You can just
Yeah,
defend Christ.
and also increasing the value for the for their virtual fury, right? If they have a 2/2, it's harder for them to trade with the other creatures also.
Yes, and if they just destroy those 3, it doesn't really matter. It was too
Hmm.
late for the Grist. If they destroy the Endurance, doesn't matter. They could have destroyed those 3, that would be okay, but I still have the Dryad Arbor in my hand and the other Shepherds as a sacrifice outlet, and here I can just destroy the Legion Warbers next turn and attack with all of the creatures. And then it was
Lethal.
lethal.
Yeah, yeah, very well played. I think there are also small details of playing our own fury removal, um, not F16 widely in front of a deck that can play Blood Moon. What other play was very nice? Turn one, Bojuka Bog to get the Shepherd. Um, yeah, definitely a lot of small details that make up for the win at the end, I think.
Yeah, and you also need to be aware of if you take some decisions, you should choose if you want to play to win this game or have the best way to win, or if you want to just not losing, and if you
Hmm.
just want to be safe and fetch for the second forest first, then you are safe with the second forest. But if the Bujukabok is the only land you have access to, then you're too far behind, I would say, and then um, it doesn't really make sense. But after all, I'm not really sure if it's correct or should have boarded that out earlier. So, oh no, it was game one, so I had to make
Yeah,
a
it was in
mistake.
one. Was in one.
Okay. Yeah, and sometimes it just works, and they weren't aggressive enough. That was my luck to have in game one, and then with the Progenitus, it's just faster than their 2/2s. So maybe if they have um, multiple rebel masters or goblins like Wobos, then they can raise.
Yeah, I think probably our deck plays fairly okay around their lock pieces, especially Chalice, right? Because Shepard just ignores Chalice. But I think the hands that we struggle the most are probably when they have a threat plus removal, either Fury or Dead and Gone. For example, if you are relying a lot in your Shepherd, I have had games where they allow you to resolve your Shepherd, then cast your next elf, for example, a very important one like a Reclaimer, and then they remove your Shepherd and with the Chalice trigger on the stack, and your Reclaimer gets counter or similar situations. Um, I think that's how we lose the games by playing into those kind of situations when they have pressure plus removal. And I don't think really we have a lot of tools to fight the prison elements, right? Because Boseiju is very good, Shepard, Ignore, Chalice, and also if you have an early Reclaimer, you can get your second forest off any land because activating Reclaimer only needs colorless mana.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, and most likely it also depends on the amount of lands you have access to in the games.
Yeah, I,
So
I think Newton also
especially,
mentioned it in this matchup. The mulligan decisions are very important. You have to have at least three lands in your opener. That's 100%. If not, you can be dead to Trinisphere, and then also ideally either one Reclaimer or an Endurance.
yeah, makes sense to apply some pressure or some problematic permanents they have to answer. And if they just have lock pieces, our threats are so powerful and they are able to punish them here. But most of the games are lost because they have a very fast clock with multiple goblins, backed up by the Fury, most likely. And sometimes they are also able to just wipe the board twice. So with the
Yeah,
Fury and the Shatter Skull, so then it's not really able to play Magic at all. But yeah, and
happens. It,
sometimes
it happens. Yeah.
yeah, and sometimes it also happens that they are just on the play and start with the first turn Blood Moon, and you only have Fetchlands in your hand. Can also be a way to lose this game. But as we have access to Force of Vigor now from the sideboard, I
It's
would
very
say
good in the matchup. Yeah.
it's very good and prevent at least the Blood Moon lines. But you can still lose to the Trinispheres, I would say. But sometimes you can also try to slow them down to destroy Chromox with a Force of Vigor. If they, for example, start with an Ancient Tomb and then play Chromox, then yeah, then you can expect that either a Blood Moon or a Trinisphere can follow up or a Rebel Master. And then if you get the Chromox in the right situation, that can be a difference to slow them down. But doesn't work always, so sometimes they
For
also
sure.
lose.
I think also if you are trying the build I play, the third Boseiju is also very good because it hits Trinisphere in 2 mana, which is very big in the matchup.
Yeah, that's of course an advantage by playing the third Boseiju,
Yeah.
especially for this matchup and for lands. So any additional
Mm,
notes to this match?
no, I think it's pretty straightforward. This is just that we can review the sideboarding if you want, but I think it's pretty stock. It's you remove the glimpses, you bring in the endurances. We already have Progenitus in the main, and then you
Exactly.
remove the other the weakest standalone creature CMC1, which is Symbiote, because it doesn't produce mana
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
an elf.
Sometimes also keeping Symbiote is okay. It also plays a bit around Fury, but I don't think that it's a very good way to try to protect something from a Fury because you get too far behind in tempo anyway. And then it's also not really good against Chalice and against Sphere because you don't have really the time to bounce your Visionaries to draw cards. And I wanted to have access to the Grist. And as you saw in this game, I would say that also Grist was a good factor in the game to apply pressure to the opponent. It adds power to the board, and it also was a removal spell for the opponent's creatures. So didn't really matter that much in this game because it came much too late. But I had access to the Grist relatively
Super
early,
early.
and
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
why either if they play a strong creature or even if they just have Fury, um, depends on the turn when they played Fury, then I would have been able to destroy the Fury after that.
Yeah. I think this game
But
played very similar to the game. I think it was round one against the Shadow, where Gris took over the game on its own.
exactly, and being on the play and being able to cast Christ on turn 3, it was turn 3, turn 2 was Endurance, so then here I had a very good board and backed up by Christ, so very hard to interact with that, and they probably didn't had a good way to cast Fury anyway. If maybe if they had Fury, they can just handle the Grist or the Endurance, but that really doesn't solve the problems for the opponent because I would have got other plays then. But here their prison line didn't work at all. So here they just start with a Trinisphere and Chalice of the Void. Didn't matter at all, but
Yeah.
mainly also because I had luck to have access to more lands. So I just started with one land in the opener and ramped for the Dryad Arbor. But as well, that makes also sense because we have so much lands in our decks now. With the additional land we added to the deck recently, going up to 21 lands. It's a very good amount of lands, and
Yeah. We
this,
can also have secured. I would say we have secured land drops for maybe 4 turns with this land count. 3, 4 turns maybe.
yeah, it's very likely that we hit land drops for the first 3 or 4 turns. But there's also sometimes a small chance that we miss on lands, and then it's very hard to play.
Yeah.
Not really only because of the Trinisphere, but sometimes or most of the time, we need a couple of lands to set up a board state where we are in a good spot. But
Yeah.
here in this games, it worked very well. So if it's okay for you, we just can resume with round 4.
Yes.